What is up, everybody? It's Tuna. So I wanted to share with you guys the build that I will be league starting in 3.18. That's Sentinel League. That is a Spectral Helix champion. We'll go through the reason why we're choosing champion this time instead of Raider or Berserker, but I will be starting as Spectral Helix champion, which I then will be re-rolling into Lightning Strike a little later on once I get 2 additional strikes. And the reason why we choose champion, because champion gets access to a lot of defenses early on, which Berserker do not get and Raider does get. However, the defenses that Raider gets are now easily achievable because of the ease that we got through Eldritch Implicits and things like that. So being able to get ailment avoidance and suppression cap is now actually achievable on other ascendancies outside of Raider. But the thing that Raider did really well was that it actually patched up a lot of the difficulties that we had with gearing before, as we only had old influences and whatnot. Now, since we are able to craft with both essences, and we have both the implicits and being able to like roll prefixes or suffixes with Eldritch Chaos or Exalt and that sort of stuff, that means that we're actually able to get a lot more flexibility in regards to what ascendancy we can play and how we build our defenses that way. And champion is fantastic because not only does it get adrenaline for early on, we'll be able to be proccing adrenaline with the blessing, but it also gets fortification, and fortification enables the perseverance belt. The perseverance belt is actually the main reason as to why I think it's worth it to go for champion. We don't exactly know what's happening to Headhunter and things like that, so I think planning around that belt now is sort of something that we should not be thinking about. And I think for most people, Headhunter anyways is more of like a mid-league goal, and the reason why I would personally go for a Raider or a Berserker is because I'm sorry to say, but it's because of Headhunter. Headhunter is a really great belt for attack builds, but a very, very good alternative is to use the Perseverance belt. And what the Perseverance belt does is that we get Onslaught while fortified, so this is permanent Onslaught for champion. We also get a lot of attack damage per the lowest of 200. And if I was to bring up the endgame POB here, you can see that we have about 67,000 evasion and 70,000 armor. That is obviously with the flasks on, but we expect to have those flasks on pretty much all the time, since we'll be rolling, we'll be rolling the flagellant, the prefix and whatnot. So yeah, we can expect those values, and we can expect also a crazy amount of effective max hit because of that. The Perseverance belt in general gives us about 50% more damage as long as we're actually stacking defenses. And I really enjoy this way to build a character because we're actually rewarded for building defenses on the character. The softcore mentality usually is damage over defense, but in this case you don't even have to think about that. It's damage and defense, and I think that is a great way to be able to build your character, and I think overall it is a very, very good choice to go for. Also, the fact that now we can't stack modifiers with Headhunter, I think Inspired Learnings have become much, much more powerful because of that. So in the endgame path of building here, you can see that I've actually put 2 Inspired Learnings into the build, so we'll be able to pretty much get, maybe like 50% of the power, or maybe a bit less depending on how it turns out, but we'll be able to get maybe 30% of the power that Headhunter gives us, with actually a lot of static power increase coming from the Perseverance belt. So overall, I think this turns out to be a more well-rounded character for both, maybe bosses or pinnacle bosses or whatever you want to do this league, as well as mapping. So we'll be able to take this character into Delirium maps, into, very, very big maps, with the new keystones that we're getting on the Alice passive tree, which we unfortunately do not currently have access to, which is going to really, really be taxing on our characters' defenses and things like that, like increasing the effects of modifiers on the altars, or giving us pretty much doubling the downsides on the altars and stuff, and rewarding us for that by giving us extra rewards like Eldritch currency, or maybe increasing the effect of them by 100% more. This means that our characters are going to need to really be built to take all of that extra damage that will be coming from monsters and things like that. And I think in that regard, champion is a really good match for that, because we'll be rewarded for building defenses, and we're not going to be compromising on damage, and it's going to be still very fast. it's still gonna be lightning strikes, so it's gonna be fantastic in terms of damage and things like that. You can see that the top end here, with once we get the omniscience, which is gonna be obviously the end game amulet, as it's very good and it's not being nerfed, we can top out around 40 million, and that is relatively conservative in regards to actually having insane gear here or anything like that. So one of the things that I'd also like to stress about something that I would do on League Start is the Alice passive tree, as I think it's very important and very good to sort of progress your way into maps, into red maps, and have a lot of ease doing that. And it's something that I will plan into my build. Personally, I put that in the PoP here, as you can see. I will be using the Gull. I think the Gull is actually an insane amulet for early on. And one thing that I will really stress, and I would like people to actually try, is to rush the shrine nodes. So the pathing of how you're going to do this is sort of going to depend on what mechanic you want to focus. But if I was to mock up a tree real quick here of how I would do it, is I would path through all this stuff, and I would rush all of the shrine stuff. So this is the shrine stuff that I think is mandatory, and the shrine stuff that is going to be very, very good. And from here you can pretty much grab whatever you want. You can grab the map stuff. One thing that I will probably grab is the Harbinger. I will take the strong boxes and the essences, and then from there you can pretty much go wherever you like. You can grab that, you can grab harvest, or anything like that. But really the important thing here is that you're going to be grabbing these shrine nodes here and here. These ones are not, this one is not important at all, as that's just a quantity thing. But when you stack that with perseverance, you get 50% increased effect of them. So sorry, not perseverance, with the Gull. Sorry, you're gonna be getting also 75% increased effect. I'm just all over the place here in regards to numbers and things like that, but 75% increased of shrine buffs, and the duration is also increased by 50%, so they'll last 50% longer. And on top of that, it's a pretty decent helmet, all things considered. You know, it's got life, it's got res, it's got a little bit of evasion, so this is gonna help us early on to just basically to feel good in maps. And if you want to take it a little step further, then which is something that you might have to sort of like look into a little bit later within your map progression, is it sort of needs to be enabled by having Supreme Ostentation, which is the Caspiro jewel, which ignores your attribute requirements. That will be to go for Blunderbore, but that is something that maybe you should think about later on, as it's not something that you can really fit into your build early on, but that is always an option. And this gives you a lesser brutal shrine or lesser master shrine all the time, and it also increases the effect of shrines on you, so that further increases the shrines, and that further increases your clear, and you'll be able to be doing like 100% delirium with just those two, and maybe one inspired learning. And yeah, so that is sort of a great way to sort of you know, progress into maps and into blasting and whatnot. So yeah, that is the primary reason as to why I think Champion is going to be the better choice for League Start, and why I'm recommending Champion to people, and why I'm also choosing to play this build, Champion Helix into Lightning Strike. The reason we cannot start Lightning Strike early on is because Lightning Strike actually requires for you to have additional strikes for it to feel good. One additional strike is the bare minimum, but I think 2 additional strikes for me is the bare minimum actually, and that will come through Eldritch Implicit or elevated suffix on actually it's a prefix, yeah, elevated prefix on Hunter Gloves. So as you can sort of, you know, as you can sort of make that out, it's not exactly the easiest thing to grab early on. The best way to do that maybe is to get 1 additional strike on gloves, which is very easy to get, and then get an amulet with Tribal Fury anointed. You can all anoint this early on, as it's very expensive. As you can see, it's opal, silver, and gold oil. So you'll probably have to find an amulet that's already dropped anointed, or a talisman. And luckily, because of these notes here, some jewelry already drops anointed, so maybe you can put a live search or something like that to find one of these early on. So that is an option that you can have there. And that is pretty much the reasoning behind why I wouldn't go for Lightning Strike early. Yeah, and it's why I'm starting Helix. So if you look here in the POB, I have made various trees that you can follow as you're leveling up. So if you look here at the bottom left where my camera is, so let me move my face real quick. Okay, here at the bottom left, there's various trees. So there's Act 2, there's Act 3, Act 5, Act 7, Act 10. There's a few skips here just because, you know, you don't really exactly have to know act by act, but if you can follow here, so you would path out, you would grab Fury Bolt into Destroyer, and at this point we want to be using two-handed axes or two-handed swords, whatever you find that's high damage, high physical damage. By Act 3 we want to be rushing Precise Technique. This is actually insane for early on attacks. And the thing that you want to make sure once you spec this is that your accuracy is higher than your life, your total life. It's just very easy to check that. You just open your stat sheet, you look at offenses, and so long as your main hand accuracy is higher than the number of your life, so say I have 800 main accuracy and my life is 600, I'll be fine. So you'll be getting the 40% more attack damage if that's the case. So by Act 3 we grab that, we really want to rush that, so you can go for Graceful Assault, and once you grab that you drop Onslaught and your melee links for Vicious Projectiles. And then you grab Precise Technique by Act 3. By Act 5 we want to grab the Axe Nodes, and the primary reason why we want to use the Axe Nodes is because we get Rage on Hit from the Mastery, and Rage on Hit is really going to help us early on with say going from zone to zone in the acts, and also later on in very early map progression. This is something that we're still going to be using. It's going to increase our speed, it's going to give us a little bit of band-aid damage, a little bit of band-aid attack speed, as you can tell, like early on. Melee skills tend to feel a bit clunky without attack speed. So yeah, this is just going to help you with that. We also take the Mark for Death and Mark Mastery. This is once we get Mark on Hit, it's going to be very useful, as well as culling high life targets like rares and whatnot. It's also going to help us get Frenzy charges, so that'll be good for Frenzy Sustain while mapping. We take Long Shot for primarily just because it gives us damage as the projectiles travels further, and as Spectral Helix the projectiles travel in a spiral. The distance they travel is sort of a lot longer than it would be for like other conventional projectile skills, as it travels in a spiral. But yeah, and we take projectiles deal increased damage for each enemy they've pierced. That includes the same enemy. So for example, if it travels through one enemy, that's once, and then the same enemy twice, 3 times, depending on how many times it hits it, it's going to give this increase here. So we can pretty much get like 60% increase on the 3rd hit, and so on and so forth. From there we just want to basically fill out the rest of the tree. By this point you'll have so much damage that it won't really matter how many damage points you get. Act 7 we just fill out life, some movement speed. We take the accuracy so that we can keep up with the accuracy from Precise Technique, and also you got to make sure that you be checking your precision here, be able to get like enough accuracy to keep that up. And by Act 10, this is when we fill out the rest. We get the aura here, the charisma. You can also grab the mastery for mana reservation and fit more auras that way. And yeah, we're going to be proccing our adrenaline with Divine Blessing, and Divine Blessing unfortunately we have to do the library quest for or wait till Act 6. Ideally you'll be getting it from a friend that is playing Templar. I know friends, getting a friend to do that for you would be pretty ideal, but otherwise you can get it in the library quest right before doing Dominus, so that'll be fine. Grabbing it there, and then you put it on life tap and you proc it. Every time you proc it, it's going to give you adrenaline for 20 seconds. So that's just something that you have to get used to, but you're going to be feeling it quite a bit, right? You're going to be feeling it, so when the downtime, you're going to be like, oh, my adrenaline's down, because you're not going to have to sort of be reminded of it. It's just you're going to feel it, so that's when you press it, and it doesn't feel too bad. The cast time is like less than a second, so you'd be pretty much just blinking your eyes and your blessing will be up, and so will your adrenaline, and you'll be zooming. So that's pretty much it. That is all the way to Act 10. We get into maps, and before we want to do our critical strike swap, so before we want to swap the critical strike, we want to make sure that we find a claw that has good crit. And this is really important, because if we use Nightblade support, Nightblade is very crit hungry. It is a support gem that gives you a lot of crit multi, and so if you don't have high critical strike chance, that crit multi is pretty much essentially completely wasted. So I really want to stress to people how important it is to have high critical strike chance on your claw, and also to have at the very least a 5 link, so you can get increased critical strike chance support, as well as Nightblade to make sure that your crit is like as high as possible, so you can really make use of that huge critical strike multiplier that you get from Nightblade and the elusive and whatnot. So yeah, before we swap to critical strike and elemental damage in general, I want to just make sure that you guys got that going. But you can see here all the support gems from Act 1 to 3, from Act 3 to 10, and then the claw swap. You can see all of the links are here, so you can just follow that up. And on top of that, I've also taken my time to write the notes here, when you should be getting each support gem, from which from which quest you get it. So you know that once you've done enemy at gate, you'll be getting splitting steel and it's free. So you can also pre-plan essentially what you need, right? So you'll need 2 wisdom scrolls in Act 1, and you'll need like 2 alterations here and 2 alterations there. So that's 4 in total in Act 2. So you can prepare accordingly and do that. And you can just follow this along. And obviously I'll also be playing it. So if you just want to actually check out the stream or something like that, and just follow along with what I do, I'll be happy to explain things, as much as possible, and explain all the questions if you have any. So yeah, I hope this video actually explained a lot, and if there's anything that I've forgotten, please do let me know in the comment, or maybe correct me in the comments as well. And I also really like to thank everyone that actually comes by and drops a comment, likes the video, maybe even subscribes. That's always really nice. I do really appreciate you guys a lot. And I am really thankful for being in a position where I can just nerd out and play Path of Exile and hang out with you guys. So yeah, honestly, love you guys for that. And yeah, I mean, honestly, I think this is a very good build, and I would not recommend it if I didn't believe in it. And I also think that you guys would probably really enjoy it, aside for the fact that you do have to start with Spectral Helix, which I know a lot of people don't particularly like. I can tell you that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Lightning Strike feels very good. When you get 2 additional strikes and Eldritch Gear, it's going to pop off. You'll be able to do all the juice content on that. So yeah, if you want to have strictly a bossing oriented league start, I would actually refer you to my Explosive Arrow Ballista guide. That is a build that I've actually made last league, that I've actually sort of improved a little bit for this league. That is the second video that should be coming up as well. So I would like you to, maybe check that out if you want to do strictly a bossing league start. But if you're more into maybe progressing into sort of difficult maps and Delirium as it's on the map device, and maybe like all the altar juice and things like that, then I feel like this is the build that is more geared towards doing that. Has more freedom in regards to being able to fit inspired learnings and getting good scaling from that. So I think that is generally the build that I would recommend to people if they want to go into that sort of juicing stuff. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and hope to see you guys again soon. I hope you have a great league start. Happy Sentinel League, everyone. I do appreciate it. Hope you guys have a good one. Peace.